Hello, everyone, and welcome to the episode 34 of our JIPS webinar podcast series. So in this episode, we will discuss new culture industry in international business, navigating social and technological transformation. My name is Stephanie Wang. I'm Associate Professor of International Business at Kelley School of Business, Indiana University, and one of the co-hosts of the webinar podcast series. Klaus Meyer, Professor of IB from Ivey School of Business, and Carl Fay, Professor of Strategy at BEI Norwegian Business School. They are the other regular co-hosts. So it's a great honor to have a guest co-host today, Professor Allan Bird. Allan is a visiting professor at the Gould Institute of Management. He previously led chair position at Northeastern University and the University of Missouri St. Louis, where he was the director of the International Business Institute. He's a fellow of AIB and a reviewing editor of JIPS. The other co-host is Marjorie Lyles. Both of them are old friends of AIB community. So Marjorie, really a lot, you know Marjorie, I don't need a lot of introduction, but just highlight a few. So Marjorie is currently the International Business Distinguished Research Fellow at Florida International University, was a professor of global strategy and management at Indiana University before. He was the first woman president of SMS. She's the fellow of AIB, SMS, and AOM. So thank you so much, Marjorie and Allan, co-host today. So first of all, I am absolutely delighted to welcome all of you to today's session from various corners of the world. I know Allan is joining from Europe, and we have co-authors, Fiona and JungYun joining from Asia. So I'm from the US. So welcome, everyone. So if you join us for the first time, welcome, and welcome back to many of old friends. And our goal is really to create a vibrant platform for exchanging fresh research ideas and exploring their real-world impact. So in each episode, we carefully select 3 recently published papers from either JIPS or JIP under a common research theme. So for this episode, we have 3 papers that will be included in the special issue of Culture Industry International Business. We have 2 more papers who are not presenting today, but they will also part of the special issue. We not only feature prominent scholars in the field who had published a lot, but also provide this platform for emerging voices, including younger scholars who might be publishing in our journals for the first time. So today we have one. And basically, we are really excited to hear what they have to say by studying this exciting and novel context. And last but not least, it's also about you, the audience. So we value your participation and engagement. We encourage you to ask questions and share your insights in through the Q&A function in Zoom. So at the bottom of your screen, you should see a bottom says Q&A. You can write your question there. You can also able to like the questions so that make the questions move up to the list and then therefore bring them to our attention. All right, without further ado, let me hand this over to Allan.
Thank you, Stephanie. It's a pleasure to be with all of you today. I'm going to move quickly into our 3 papers. That's why we've gathered here, not to hear me speak. And so our first paper up will be presented by Fiona Kunyao. The title of that paper is Worldwide Spread of the Weinstein Scandal and the Me Too Movement, Cross-Country Diffusion of Reputation Loss in the Film Industry. Fiona, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So let me share my screen. Okay, so did you see my screen? Yes, good. So this paper is about a very significant event in the film industry. This is the Harvey Weinstein scandal, and actually as you all know, the Me Too movement actually is sparkled by this scandal. So this paper, I have 2 co-authors. Nate and Julia were doctoral students in my group, but they are now assistant professors in Western Texas A&M University, and then Julia is in Shanghai University of Finance and Economics. So let me start with the research background of the paper. So as I mentioned just now, we study Harvey Weinstein scandal and the Me Too movement in the film industry. Back to 2017, in October 5th, actually, the New York Times reported Harvey Weinstein sexual scandal. And then after that, the actress Alicia Milano posted on Twitter about Me Too. So she actually requests everyone with experience of sexual harassment to actually actually talk about this, to not to remain silent. And then later, 2 days later, Harvey Weinstein actually resigns from the board of Weinstein Company. And this actually, this is not just about the United States. This scandal and the Me Too movement actually is diffused to all around the world. So this effect actually led to a worldwide wave of sexual abuse allegations. Started the social media campaign, Me Too, and then all kinds of media in different countries report this scandal, like the Times of Israel in London reported this scandal and criticized Harvey Weinstein because his behavior was completely unacceptable. And Reuters in France also argued that the scandal was forcing a rethink of attitudes towards sexual harassment. So that's why we study this scandal, because this is a very significant moral event in the film industry, one of the important cultural industries. So then let's move on to the research motivation. Excellent research on cultural industry is more about actually how to create pleasant experience. It's more about positive side. Because cultural products give people more pleasant, positive values. So, but the existing research has not paid enough attention to this type of more adverse event in the culture industry. For example, the Weinstein scandal. And also excellent research on cross-country diffusion has paid a lot of attention to diffusion of positive practice, like ISO 9000 standards, or how innovation diffuse across countries. But diffusion of this type of negative reputation internationally has been rarely studied. So then that's why our research question is, how does the Weinstein scandal affect revenue of other multinational firms in the film industry in international markets? And then this is our overall theoretical framework. So we first study firm heterogeneity, because not all firms are influenced, are negatively affected by the Weinstein scandal. So our hypothesis one is about what firms are more likely to be influenced by the Weinstein scandal. And we argue that multinational firms' association with Weinstein Company, so this is a key factor. Firms associated with the Weinstein Company are more likely to experience revenue decrease in international markets. So our first hypothesis is about firm heterogeneity. And then hypothesis 2 and hypothesis 3 are more about the country heterogeneity, because we study international markets. We want to study in which countries those associated multinational firms are more likely to experience revenue decrease. And then we focus on two types of factors. One is more about, one is about media. The other is about institutions. And then we study media because we think in this type of event, you first need audience to pay attention to that. And media is a significant factor in attention. So we think we study both traditional and digital media in different host country and how this media attention affect the likelihood of associated MME's revenue decrease after the scandal. And then the next factor is formal versus informal institutions in different host country. We think, so first we need attention. And then the second is even people will pay attention to this event, but people may have different morality, different moral values. And a country's formal and informal institutions about like something like gender equality will influence how people evaluate this event. So then our hypothesis is about formal and informal institutions and how these institutions influence the likelihood that associated MMEs experience revenue decrease in international markets after the scandal. So first is hypothesis one, firm heterogeneity. As I mentioned just now, we think that firms associated with the Weinstein company are more likely to experience revenue decrease because audience view these associated MMEs as painted with the same brush. So hypothesis one is Weinstein associated MMEs in the film industry are more likely to have a decrease in revenue in international markets after the Weinstein scandal than non-associated MMEs. And then we move on to the country heterogeneities. We first study traditional media. Traditional media actually are very important means of communication because actually traditional medias has high level credibility compared to digital media. Traditional media also has broad reach, especially in countries with limited access to internet. So traditional media has broad reach. And then our hypothesis two is that the coverage Me Too received from traditional media in the host country moderates the main effect, such that the effect is stronger when Me Too receive more coverage, but weaker when Me Too receive less coverage. And then we move on to digital media. So digital media is different from traditional media because digital media actually take effect with actually quickly and also take effect with more emotionality and communality. So then, so similar to our hypothesis, the previous hypothesis, we argue that we propose that digital media also moderate the main effect, such that the effect is stronger when Me Too receive more coverage, but weaker when Me Too receive less digital media coverage. And then we compare the two media because sometimes the two media may misalign with each other because as you know, digital media is generated by users, but traditional media is generated by journalists. So journalists select what kind of news that they are going to broadcast in traditional media. But digital media is content is generated by user. And then these two type of content may differ from each other. So then we think the misalignment between traditional and digital media increase the confusion of audience regarding which type of media to trust. So the misalignment will moderate the main effect, such that the effect is weaker when Me Too receive misaligned coverage, but stronger when Me Too receive aligned coverage. And then we move on to the institutions, and we study formal institutions in the next hypothesis. Formal institutions are regulations and laws. So we specifically focus on regulations and laws about gender equality. We think that MMEs in countries with stronger formal institutions of gender equality will suffer more negative evaluations. So such that this our main effect is stronger in countries with stronger formal institution of gender equality, but weaker in countries with weaker formal institution of gender equality. And then similarly, we move on to informal institutions. Informal institutions are norms and values. And we think MAEs in countries with stronger informal institutions suffer more negative evaluation from the public after scandal. So that means the effect is stronger in countries with stronger informal institution of gender equality, but weaker in countries with weaker informal institutions of gender equality. And then we also study the misalignment, similar to the misalignment between digital and traditional media. This incongruence between the two institutions will create a gaps between what is legal and what is legitimate, increase confusion. So the main effect is weaker when in countries with misaligned formal informal institutions, but stronger in countries with aligned formal and informal institutions of gender equality. And then we have a sample. We have around 2,000 movies from 59 home countries with weekly box office revenue. So we study, because this is an event study, we use different dip. And we study 2 years before and 2 years after. That's 208 weeks in total in 86 host countries. And then, so these are some explanation about the variables. So digital media, we study both Google Trend and Twitter. Traditional media is just the news article in each country. And then we have composite measures for formal and informal institutions. And we also have various controls at movie, firm level, country level, and other fixed effects. And our results, we find high support for most hypotheses except H2B, which is about the influence of digital media. So we find, and then we perform various robust checks. We have alternate measures, like we study the intensity of the association and alternative form of association. In the main study, we focus on whether the firm has passed a collaboration with a visiting company. And then in robust check, we also study whether they are similarity in network position, size similarity, or they come from the same location of origin. And we also try alternate measure for more informal institution. We try alternate event dates, alternate observation window, and we also use course and exam matching to try to mitigate endogeneity problem. And so this study actually has kind of important implication to culture industry, because we address global sustainability challenge about specific the gender equality issue in culture industry, the sexual harassment issue in culture industry. And we conceptualize the new culture industry by specific focus on media. As mentioned by Paul Hirsch, actually media is a gatekeeper. We focus on not only the digital media, not only the traditional, but also digital media. And we also study the importance of informal institutions, the norms and shared values about gender equality. And of course, this study has several limitations, like we study reputation loss as a mechanism, but we do not measure it. And we have weekly box office revenue. That's already the finest level of data that we can have. But an ideal setting for event study is to study the daily level. And then right now with digital media, some countries have limited access to Google and Twitter. So our digital media measures still may have some limitation. And then there are probably general liability issues, whether the paper can be applied to other scandals or maybe applied to non-cultural industries. So Yes, yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Fiona. We have a number of questions. We'll hold those until we get to the Q&A portion. Our next paper up will be presented by Cecilia Qian. Foreignness is a double-edged sword for the internationalization of cultural goods, deep learning-based semiotic analysis of Hollywood movies in China. Go ahead.
Thank you, Allan, so much. Could you all see my slides okay? Good, thank you. Let me just make sure this is the one, okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this lovely morning. My name is Cecilia. I'm from Georgia State University. This is a paper that I work with my lovely co-authors. They are Wang from Georgia State University and Jiamin Zhang from Peking University. So in this paper, we examine the performance implications of foreigners in the internationalization of cultural goods. In particular, like Fiona's paper, we use movie as our empirical context, and we also adapt the deep learning-based semiotic analysis as our empirical approach. So let me start with foreigners. Foreigners, as we all know, is a core theoretical construct in the longstanding IB literature. The internationalization of cultural goods is inherently foreign, and thus foreigners plays a pivotal role in influencing the performance of cultural goods. One, it provides information cues on the authenticity of the cultural goods. It also shapes the local audience perception of the cultural goods. Now, the literature has been quite divided in terms of the potential implications of performance from foreigners. One streams of literature tend to believe that foreigners largely plays the role as a liability. In the context of cultural goods, foreigners generates cultural discount. It creates this information asymmetry, and hence, because of their of a lack of familiarity of the cultural products, the cultural product may suffer from a lack of legitimacy, and hence influencing negatively, impacting its sales in the foreign market. On the other hand, foreigners can be considered as an asset. It sends a signal of authenticity. Also, it creates these differentiation effects that allows the cultural goods to stand out from its competitive offerings in the local market. It can create this better brand image and thus allows the firms, the products to access to more local resources, such as unique human talents from the host country. So with that in mind, we asked the question whether and to what extent does the level of foreigners influence the performance of cultural goods in a host country. So for the interest of time, I'm not going to get into the details of our arguments. In general, we hypothesize that there is an inverted U-shaped relationship between semiotic foreigners and Hollywood movies and their performance in the host country. In other words, we look at semiotic foreigners, which we define as the differences in movie synopsis and posters between the Hollywood movies and the Chinese movie. And we argue that it is the optimal level of foreigners. It is a moderate level of foreigners that generate the optimal performance in terms of movies ticket office sales. Again, we used Hollywood movie exported to China in the time period 2011 to 2018 as our empirical context. In order to construct the variable foreignness, we also collected all the data, including posters and synopsis from the Chinese movie as well during and before that period we examined. We collected additional data of other foreign movies released in China as our supplementary analysis. I would like to spend a little more time into the measurement of synopsis foreignness and poster foreignness. So as I briefly introduced earlier, we use advanced methodology at the product level to give a comprehensive understanding of how foreignness actually makes sense or have an impact on performance. So for synopsis foreignness, we apply embeddings, and specifically, we apply bidirectional encoder representations from transformation, which is also known as BERT, to capture synopsis foreignness. So this method allows us to transfer the unstructured textual data, in this context, the synopsis data, into the structural information using a deep learning method, which is called BERT. So BERT was originally developed by Google in the year 2018. It has been pre-trained on a large body of text data, and therefore the meanings of all the words or tokens in both the Hollywood movie and the Chinese movie synopsis would be well recognized. We then use BERT to transform each synopsis into the 768 dimensional numerical vectors to represent each of its meanings. In the second step, we then computed the cosine similarities or the cosine value between each of the numerical vectors and eventually gauge the measure of similarity between two synopses. So this is the general measure we use and the visualization of the calculation procedures for our synopsis measurements. Next, we also measure foreignness in terms of image. So poster foreignness is the next measure. Here, the traditional computational approach to analyze image tend to be insufficient for us to really have a better understanding of how human beings, how our visual network view poster differences or image differences. Traditionally, image were considered as tons of pixels with different values of grade levels. It is challenging for computers to compare image in a holistic sense like human beings do. So for instance, an image like Steve Jobs here, the computer simply interpreted as a bunch of pixels, but we human beings can easily tell it's Steve Jobs. However, the structural similarity index, which is called this SSIM paradigm here, it is trained to mimic how the human visual systems work, and it is able to extract the structural information, not only the color information, but the structural information from the poster instead of just treating them as discrete pieces with different colors. And that's why it is more advanced and allows us to have a better understanding of how human beings treat different posters and categorize it as whether foreign or similar to what the local offerings have. So again, SSIM integrate the luminance, the contrast, and also the structural informations into its SSIM index. So our calculation has, the SSIM calculation has provided us pretty informative indication of poster foreignness. So as we show it here in this slide, these posters in the middle row are the posters that have been identified with a low level of foreignness to the local or Chinese movie posters with the same genre. Whereas at the bottom row, they shows the posters that are identified with the high foreigners compared to the local movie posters of the same genre. So based on our human vision and our own visual network, I think we can all agree that they are pretty aligned with our cognitive perception here. So just quickly jump to the findings. We do find an inverted U shape between poster foreigners and for Hollywood movies box office sales in China. In other words, we do find that it is the moderate level of poster foreigners that gives the best outcomes. However, and interestingly, we do not find any significant results between synopsis foreigners and the Chinese box office sales. I would like to give you some examples based on our data and analysis, what we mean here by a moderate level of foreigners giving the best result in terms of attracting local audience attention. So here is the poster of Transformer: Age of Extinction. Now, this movie was released in China in 2014, and only in 10 days of its release, it became the highest grossing film in China at the time. One unique feature of the poster is it included the stunning landscape of Tiankeng, which were in the Chongqing area. Is well known by the local people. And this is well accepted by the local audience. The local critics mentions that this is an intentional effort to genetically modify the movie that served to enhance familiarity and also catch the attention of the Chinese audience. So this corresponds to what I mentioned earlier. It is the local adaptation, when well done, it has the moderate level of the new and the old, or something new and something familiar that really does the magic. So the next counter example, however, would be the Smurf 2, which was released at around the same time. So the Smurf 2 was released in China in the year 2013. And from the poster, we can all see there are intentional efforts to please the local audience and by adding a lot of these Chinese characteristics. So Chinese dumplings to the left and the Dragon Balls to the right are all included into the background. While this is certainly familiar to the local audience, there are interesting comments given saying that these kind of designs are out of the context and even make the local audience feel uncomfortable. So these, according to our calculation, falls into the right side of the inverted U-shaped. Too much similarity eventually reduce performance of cultural goods. We have done a couple of supplementary analysis to verify our findings. For instance, we have adopted a different approach to synopsis foreigners and poster foreigners by using bag of words, by using word-to-vex, or the convolutional neural network model. We also seek the boundary conditions of semiotic foreigners, such as looking at the temporal dynamics and movie genres as well. They all reveal very interesting findings. I encourage you to go read the paper for more. So this is my last slide. I would like to highlight some of the theoretical implications of our study. First of all, I think our paper have a meaningful implications to the longstanding discussion on the foreigners' performance relationship. Specifically, as mentioned at the beginning of the talk, there is a paradox of foreigners regarding how it affects products performance or firm performance when internationalizing. We integrate the argument of the liability and asset of foreigners and do find the inverted U shape in our context. Second, I believe this is the first study that apply the deep learning based measurements to capture foreigners. Given its significance in the IB context and IB literature, it's unfortunate that foreigners has been often poorly specified and operationalized. So we hope that by applying BIRD and SSIM, among other advanced methods to capture foreigners, it does give us a more concrete and understanding of the measure itself, and hence this is one step further to a more accurate understanding of its performance implication. Our measure encompasses the cognitive, structural, and visual attributes at the product level, but of course, future study can apply that to other contexts such as at managerial level, teamwork, etc. Last but not least, we also have implications to the optimal distinctiveness theory. We believe this is the first study to integrate ODT with the IB study, and hopefully this will be one of the lead studies that introduce more into this area. So with that, I would like to thank you so much for your attention. Before I close, I really want to take 2 seconds to thank the incredible support that we have received from editor Marjorie Lyles and the constructive feedbacks that we have received from the 4 anonymous reviewers during the process. And of course, thank you, Stephanie, for organizing the PDW during AOM early on. And we've received comments from you, Allan, and Alvaro, and many others. So we could not be here without this support. So appreciate that. I'll stop here.
Thank you, Cecilia. We'll now turn our attention to the third presentation, which will be by JungYun, The Liability of Gender, Constraints and Enablers of Foreign Market Entry for Female Artists. JungYun.
Okay, thank you. Let me share the screen with everyone. Oh gosh, let me go back to it. Stop share it. Let me see. Okay, this one. Okay. So screen is okay for everyone? Okay, let me start it. I want to edit this. Okay, hello everyone. And I'm JungYun from National Taiwan. And this is a joint work with Andrew Shiflov. Oh, it's paused. Just 1 second. I want to make sure whether this is okay. The screen is okay? Because I see there's some error issue. Okay, now it's fine. Okay, this is a joint work with Andrew Shiflov and Henny Grabe from INSEAD. So our study is also aligned with the 2 other presentations before, because we are also going to talk about liability of foreigners and also the gender. However, this paper, we are talking about fine art. So let's talk about this one. So let me start with some fact first. So if you look at the fine art market recently, then in the global scale, the auction transactions, so you can see.
Sorry, JungYun, did you move to the next slide? Because we still see the first slide.
Oh, I move it, but you cannot see it?
No, maybe reshare.
Okay, I will stop it and do again.
Good.
Can you see the second screen now? The
Yes.
fact check slide?
Yes.
Okay, let me resume here. If you look at the global auction market across the 49 countries, then you can find the female artists, their work and paintings, they are sold at half of price as compared to the male artist. And also, if you look at the London major commercial galleries, you will be surprised the majority of artwork are displayed by male artists. It's almost 2/3 are made by the male artist. And the same thing happens in this secondary market. So that gives us some hints that in art market and either the sales volume-wide, display-wide, and the price-wide, female artists, they suffer. So simply saying, in art marketing globally, being woman, that hurts. However, then our question is, if females have some difficulty in global market, how they can overcome this difficulty and make the success in international market. So let me look at the Rina Saini Kalat. She is well-known internationally, and she's a female artist from India. And her profile actually caught our attentions. When she was born in India, then in the rural areas, if you look at her profile, then after she graduated the art school in India, then she started to join the well-known residency programs. And since then, she got some international fame, and nowadays her work are displayed in London, Tokyo, Paris, and New York, San Francisco, everywhere in big global market. Then let me give you the hint of what residency means here. In fine art, residency is the program that's mostly targeting the early stages artists. So the typical case is an artist after graduating art school, then they send their portfolio to this program. If they are qualified and accepted, then they get free studio for 1 or 2 years, and you stay there. And there you have a lot of opportunity to mingle with other peers, junior artists there, and you can exchange ideas, and also you get financial support. Sometimes you have a chance to meet art juries, critics, and media and journalists. However, the difference between residency program to the art school is there is no curriculums. So here the residency, clearly they just give the space for interaction and some exchanges, but does not have any formal educations. So having that in mind, I will go back to this example a few slides later. So again, in our research also looking at the liability reportingness in the IB, the big topic in cultural market. As other presentations already mentioned, the liability reportingness is a serious concern in cultural businesses, cultural market. That's because it's hard to see in foreign markets, foreign audience perspective, whether my art piece or cultural goods are good or bad. There is no quantifiable measure to see this is authentic or this is super great. So there is a lot of subjective nature of the cultural goods and make it much harder for the cultural producers to send their work in the foreign market. And also local specific nature, such as their language, history, the norms, and their vibe, all things that make it foreign expansion much harder for any culture producers. In this paper, then we say that beyond this liability of foreignness as a baseline, and in fine art, then gender, being a female, can be another liabilities. That's because in fine art markets, so their producers are individual level. This means that their gender as an artist, their ethnicity, and other social characteristics that already affected by their domestic market, meaning that I'm female, so by my societal norms and bias, then I have a low status in my home market that affects my personal status. And in the end, it affects likelihood of my culture goods and my fine art can be exported into the foreign markets. So that's why the female artists are having much harder time in exporting their fine art in foreign markets. More specifically, then in our case, for the being woman, as I show you in the first slide, and there's a lot of disadvantages for why, because they are low status in their home market, meaning, so because of a low status, they don't have that much information, have a difficulty in having access to the foreign market. What's the trend out there? How I can get to the galleries and who's the right gatekeepers. I don't know that much as a female artist. And plus, as a lower status actors, my network is poor in my home market, meaning that, oh, can I ask someone who can help me? It's hard. And plus, in female case, it's much harder to find someone I say, well, I want to be the same like the role model, because of it's hard to find some senior female artists who made a success international, then made a self-fulfilling expectation. Oh, I don't want to do it because I never seen such cases. So that leads to our main hypothesis here. Female artists will be less likely to enter 4D market than male artists. This means the gender become another liability in entering 4D market. However, we suggest the two enabling factors that help female artists to overcome the liability. One is a professional network, and second one is their educations. Let me start with this professional network here. In our context in fine art, as I mentioned before, so one of the representative professional network will be the residencies. So 1 or 2 years staying in this studio, so you will meet a lot of young professionals working on the similar work. And during this period, the females will have a chance to compensate their lacking information and networking, because you meet a lot of the qualified artists around you and they naturally talk each other. And plus that you can also find some young artists who already have some experiences in 4D market. Naturally, you can ask what's theirs, what's the secret, and how you can approach the markets. That's why for female artists, we argue that female artists attending art residency programs, that will experience much stronger positive effect on their 4D market entry than male artists in the same art residency programs. We see that residency program is much more beneficial for female side. However, for the elite education, we predict some different directions. So not only professional networking, that another enabler you can think about if you went to the top art schools, you already know how to produce the good artwork yourself. There is education skill-wise, you get something, but education meaning not only skills, you meet friends there, you meet your advisors, you can find your role models there. However, art scene, even in the elite education, in top art schools, it's already dominated by the males. So almost majority of art professors, they are males. This means the females are still having the weak status in art schools. So even if you learn the good skills and techniques there, you still have disadvantages in terms of your approach to your advisors and getting some valuable information and networking effect from your other university friends there. So here, our hypothesis here, hypothesis 3 is, female artists attending the elite educational program will experience much weaker positive effect of education on their 4D market entry compared to the male artists attending the same elite educational program. And our last hypothesis is depreciations. You can imagine you attended the art school in 2000. That does not mean that as of today, 2024, your networking effect during the program will be the same in 2000 and 2024. So we use the metaphor of the differentiations, meaning that the value of your networking will go away over time. And also this differentiation, depreciation, the decade will differ by how much you have a loyalty to this networking, and also how often you keep your connection with your peers over time. So you have alumni networking, so you have some event to keep in touch, or just after the program, you don't keep in touch. So in this regard, for females, professional networking, even if it's immediately very beneficial, but there is no alumni program there, so that's instrumental by nature. So this decade, over time, the effect will be quickly disappear as compared to your school ties. It's much sticky and also friendship-based. So our last hypothesis here is the effect of art residency program on a foreign market entry for female artists will decay much quicker than the effect of a female artist elite education effect. This means the school is more sticky. Our context here is a Korean artist in the fine art market, including painting, sculpture, installation, and photo. So we collected artist profile from the reflection. So this is non-profit organization for 281 Korean artists. And after collecting the data, we did a comprehensive interview and meeting a lot of art-related people to get a good sense of what's happening in the art market. In terms of variables, our dependent variable for the market expansion, we measured the number of artists, their solo exhibition in 14 galleries, and independent variable for hypothesis 1, the liability for the gender, we use male or female. And for the other hypothesis, whether the artist attended the top residency program, and also they attended the top school programs. And for the last hypothesis, decay functions, we use the calculations simply saying if you attended the top school from 2000 to 2004, then the value will be 1 because it means I attended this top school. However, the 1 year after, let's say it slowly decay, only 5% is depreciated. In this case, we multiply by 0.95 over and over. So that's the way we calculated from the value 1 to 0.95 the next year and over and over. Here are our regressions. We found that our females liability is supported. We found quite strong significant effect is there. And interestingly, and residency was only positive for female. And and when we look at how the female benefit from residency programs, then we found that actually this female artists benefit from other female peer artists in the residency program, not from the male peers. And the top school case, we found that that was only beneficial for the males. On the next slide, then we want to compare. We try to combine all different decay, the metrics, very quick decay, then and to the very slow. So numerically, we tried 10% up to 95% for residency as a decay function. Same way to the education, it goes down the 5% decrease or almost gone away like 90%. And after running those regressions and compare the metrics, we found that the residency program for female case, 1 year after, the value goes down 0.3, meaning that 70% of this value just to quickly disappear after 1 year. However, education case is very much sticky, only 5% was depreciated year after years. So that support our hypothesis for. So our findings, we want to make a true contribution to international business and more specifically IB in culture industry. So beyond the baseline, the core construct of liability foreignness from these studies, we want to suggest that there is another type of liability for cultural producers. From our findings, we suggest that gender discrimination can be another hurdle for cultural producers when they go abroad. That's the one aspect we want to highlight. And the second one is the gender discrimination issues. A lot of studies are looking at the gender discrimination, but mostly in science or the non-cultural product and managerial positions. But we want to show that in cultural producers, gender discrimination matters a lot. And moreover, Some studies looking at if the females at disadvantages, their networking matters, but the prior research looking at more spontaneously networking behavior, that was their focus. Whereas we suggest that if a female has a very well-designed professional networking places like a residency program, and this is a good way they can overcome the gender discrimination and increase their chances to export their art pieces to foreign market. These are the two main contributions we want to make. Then I will stop it here.
Thank you, JungYun. We are short on time, but Marjorie, let me give you the remainder of the time to share your thoughts on the three papers.
I've really enjoyed reading your papers. This is really interesting to me because it's showing so much how much culture impacts work and in many different ways. And I think all three papers are really different and yet contribute a lot to our thinking about what is being studied and what areas are open. And it allows us to move in many different directions. So thank you all for your papers. And I'm glad they've gotten into this special issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Marjorie. As we come to a conclusion, let me offer something that I hope will be provocative both for our authors, but also for our attendees as well. When we talk about cultural industries, there are a variety of ways to think about it, but stepping back as I was listening to presentations this morning and pondering what we mean what's distinctive about cultural industries, I was thinking about a statement that Peter Drucker, the great management guru, said, which is that culture eats strategy for breakfast. And it's a powerful statement about the impact of culture. And in the context of these three papers, I wondered, what do these three papers tell us about the power of culture? And I think particularly the dynamic nature of culture, because each of these papers in their own way addresses the question of how does culture change and how is culture created? And so as we conclude today, I would just encourage you to ponder that going forward. How does each of these papers help us better understand the impact of culture through the lens that's provided by a focus on cultural industries? Stephanie, I'm going to hand it back over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Allan. So I think we probably have time for a question for each author. So I saw we have a question in the Q&A session for JungYun, and we have a question for Fiona. We also have a question for Qian. So let's start with Fiona. So Fiona, somebody asked you a question about, maybe you can explain a little bit, how did you choose media and institution as a key moderator? So what's the rationale behind? Maybe giving some tips or recommendations for future research if they want to adopt like similar methods. Yeah, what would that be if you give one comment on that?
Yes, that's a great question. So broadly speaking, the paper leverage an institutional approach, and based on the seminal work by Ocasio, attention and the morals are the two pivotal factors in affecting human actions, attention and moral. So then in this context, attention, because if you want audience to penalize social multinational firms after the scandal, first you need to get attention. So we think so only when countries have maybe extensive attention in terms of both traditional and digital media attention of Me Too movement, can those firms be penalized. So first attention, and then is after people have attention, but audience may have different ethical standards, different morals. So even okay, people pay attention to this, but people may not think that this is bad. So then institutions will kick in because institutions of like something like gender equality in different countries will influence people's moral standards about how they judge this event, how they evaluate the Me Too, how they judge the Weinstein scandal. So then attention. So we think host countries with robust, with strong institution of gender equality will promote moral convergence, which will penalize those social multinational firms all around the world. So first, attention, convergence, and then second, the moral convergence. So both factors are pivotal in penalizing those social multinational firms. Yes, thank you.
Great, Fiona. So we have two questions for Cecilia, Qian. So maybe we can combine them. They are related. So I think Cecilia's paper showcased a great example to study different dimensions of foreignness. And if you are going to provide advice, recommendation for people to continue the same line of research, what would that be? We also have an audience ask a question about, professional poster designers. So they might engage knowledge sharing and exchange, right? They might learn from others. So what would the degree of knowledge sharing? So they might learn about how to design affect the impact of foreigners. So Cecilia.
Thank you, Stephanie, and the questions. They are very, very important questions. So in fact, we also point out in the papers that the literature have been the longstanding literature on foreigners generally overlook the fact that the perception of foreigners can vary substantively across products, firms, regions, and countries. In this study, we focus on product level foreigners. We address the cognitive, the structural, and the visual attributes of foreigners in this study. But there are just so much more to incorporate. We can vary the level of analysis using similar methodologies, the SSIM or the BERT that we have integrated in this study. But we also can go beyond the cultural goods context to examine at the product level or firm level decisions, such as the C-level discussions, the annual report, the team dynamics, and how they can then influence performance in global expansion. And going back to the second question about the exchange of knowledge and idea sharing, I think that would be an interesting extension of the study too. So what you are talking here is knowledge sharing by maybe mobilization of labors across countries, and you can talk about international team dynamics as well. So some of these idea exchange through semantic context, right? Through textual or even maybe poster exchanges, idea formations could be captured by some of these methodologies we introduce. So definitely interesting dimensions to look into the boundary effects of these moderators.
Great, thank you. So the last question is for JungYun. So this is about the foreign market entry. About the liability of gender, I guess, female artist. So this audience asks, what about the success in the home market? So do male artists, they are more successful in the home market? So which basically open up more possibility of entering foreign markets. So I think in your case, your home market is relatively small. So, but anyway, so what would you say to this question? You are muted.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. So actually, we also tested whether there is a gender discrimination, so whether females were disadvantaged in the home market. In our case, it's Korea. We tested empirically and also found that there was a strong significant effect. So females were discriminated. They had less exhibition in their solo work in Korea market and also in the foreign markets, meaning that so the liability of genders, of course, we focus on there in foreign markets, but that also originated in their home market. So that's the thing. So that links to my first chart, say that across 49 countries, females are pretty much disadvantages. That shows that, yes, regardless of area, yes, we found it, the same patterns.
Okay, perfect. So I want to share one more resource here. So culture industry is not really interesting context to do research because it challenged a lot of the conventional IB theory assumption. So there are also a lot of case studies here, so shared by audience. So if you are interested in teaching the data some of the resources, feel free to send me an email. I can share the document with you. So I also want to, again, thank you very much for all the panelists. So thank you for generously sharing your insights with us. And thank you for everyone for joining us live today. So I know that everyone's busy teaching. So I think at the peak, we got 45 audience. So this is a niche research topic. So I'm really glad that we have a collection of people who are intellectually curious about the context. So I hope you come away from this webinar with some fresh, valuable insights that can inspire your own research. So the 3 paper showcased today, again, they will include in special issue along with another 2 paper and an editorial introduction. So the conversation and insights exchange certainly doesn't stop here. So I also want to remind you, mark your calendar for 3 more webinars on the way. So we have one about global mobility, and in November 1st, the registration will be sent out shortly. We also have November 12th, recent advance in international leadership. And then for December 13th, we have frankly, Allan, and it's about multinational financing climate change. And then the next year, we start with the JIPS Decade Award. So finally, big thank you to Tonga Tiak, Executive Director of the AIB, and also the digital motion team, the heroes behind the scene. So Dan, Rostock, Nicole Hare, and many others behind the scene. So you can check out our videos, recordings in the AIB YouTube channel. Our podcast versions available in the podcast, in the Spotify and Podbean page. So see you next time, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Yeah.